Does financial freedom mean you have to pack up your life, leave the coast, and permanently relocate to somewhere like Nebraska? I mean, that's the established wisdom, right?
Right.
The whole mantra of the financial independence movement, or FI, has always been dictated by the brutal math of the 4% rule.
Right.
If you want to retire early, if you want long-term autonomy, you have to flee the economic gravity of these high cost of living areas, places like San Francisco, Manhattan, London. They're just financially off limits unless you're already a multimillionaire. The advice is always go where your money goes further.
And for, over 3 decades, that advice has been impeccably sound, mathematically anyway. It's the engine that allowed the whole financial independence, retire early, to thrive in Midwestern suburbs and lower tax cities.
Sure.
But what if we told you that for a very specific high leverage purpose, the game has structurally changed? What if you could flip that map entirely?
In this deep dive, we are not just tearing up that map. We are, using it as leverage. We are going to show you exactly how a highly motivated individual can establish themselves in San Francisco or Manhattan, the world's most expensive, highest leverage hubs for innovation, with just $1 million.
Just $1 million.
Yeah.
And it's invested strategically in a very particular instrument, ticker STRC.
Yeah.
And this isn't some theory, dreamt up in an ivory tower. This is an absolute life hack. It's built on exploiting structural differences between corporate accounting, tax law, and state regulations.
It's not about quitting your life.
No, not at all. It's not for a permanent vacation. It is designed to buy a precious, decade-long window. It's the ultimate financial hack to get autonomy and pursue precisely what you want to do right where all the action is.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that claim itself is it's pretty radical. We are not talking about traditional retirement portfolios. We were talking about securing a 10-year runway, a critical finite window of deep work. Our source material lays out what it calls a triple arbitrage strategy, and it allows an investor to get a level of financial independence that, under the safe traditional 4% rule, would normally require a capital base of, $2.5 million?
At least, yeah. We are essentially leveraging the system to generate 3 times the safe withdrawal rate.
So this is a highly sophisticated, multi-layered approach.
It is. To make this work, the investor has to align 3 structural levers perfectly, and we're going to identify and analyze each one. First, capital structure arbitrage.
Okay.
Second, regulatory arbitrage. And third, spatial efficiency arbitrage. This is not just about picking one stock. It's about aligning all these technicalities, accounting rules, federal tax code, even urban planning, to create what is essentially a heavily subsidized lifestyle.
And the stakes here are high, and the content is, it's technically dense. We really urge you, the listener, to pay close attention here. We're going to be diving into mechanics that are absolutely essential to this whole framework.
Yeah, things like return of capital distributions, or ROC, the necessary condition of something called negative earnings and profits, or E&P.
And how your modified adjusted gross income, your MBI, determines if you can get state-sponsored benefits. You have to understand these details to really grasp the risk, but also the brilliance of the strategy.
And here is the core philosophical point that really underpins this entire deep dive. The idea here is not rest.
Right.
It is not about passive income paying for a vacation home. This strategy is explicitly designed to unlock opportunity, to buy a 10-year window of intense, focused production at a historically opportune time.
I mean, think about the economic moment we are in.
Exactly. The entire new digital age is being built simultaneously around 2 primary high leverage forces, Bitcoin and AI. The cross-pollination between these fields is creating just unparalleled asymmetric opportunities.
So this strategy is the financial structure that gives you the freedom.
The freedom to dedicate yourself fully to what exactly you wanted to do with your life, and it places you in the highest leverage location possible on Earth to do it.
That idea, it really resonates so deeply with us, and frankly, we are feeling that creative ambition ourselves. The response to these deep dives has been amazing, and this whole discussion of what you want to do it raises the question of what we want to do. And we want to make these deep content pieces visually spectacular, remarkably vivid videos that can communicate the complexity of these structural ideas without losing the drama or the detail.
The ability to visualize the mechanics, like how a return of capital reduces a cost basis, or how a dividend stopper financially handcuffs a corporation, that's absolutely crucial. There's only so much nuanced information we can communicate without strong dynamic visuals.
Right. And, we want to get our hands on the best AI video tools for this. Our marketing and production team is, well, they're obsessed with the Mosaic AI video editor. They think they've found the holy grail of fully automated, vivid video creation that still maintains accuracy.
And that's the key part, the accuracy.
But to access the funding, we need to really integrate that sophisticated tool set. We need to hit a certain subscriber threshold, specifically 1,000 subscribers. So this is our transparent call to action to you. Please subscribe if you haven't already.
Yeah, please do.
And share this episode in your community, your WhatsApp groups, your Slack channels, or wherever you geek out on topics of deep finance, deep science, or deep spirituality.
Your support directly translates into us being able to communicate this complexity better, faster, and more clearly to a broader audience.
Also, because we are always searching, please let us know in the comments if you know of a fully automated AI-based video editor you think is genuinely better than Mosaic. We want to know.
We really do.
You can check out Mosaic and what our team is so excited about at https://mosaic.s, that is MOSAIC.so. Now, let's stop talking about our dreams and jump into the mechanics of securing your ambitious 10-year runway.
All right, let's set the stage for this high-stakes, high-leverage financial project. I'm Satosha.
And I'm Satoshi.
Okay, the executive thesis here, it directly challenges that traditional FIRE narrative of permanent rest or forever vacation.
Right.
That expectation is mathematically impossible if you only have $1 million and you're planning to live in a Tier 1 city like San Francisco in the 2025 economy.
$1 million used to be the definition of wealthy. Now it sounds like a respectable down payment on a house, not a decade of guaranteed autonomy in a major city.
Exactly. Our core premise is that $1 million in the current economic reality of a high-cost center buys you only one thing, a 10-year breakthrough window, a ticket for struggle.
I love that framing, ticket for struggle.
Because if you try to pursue a low-stress retirement on that capital base and that location, the speed of capital depletion will shock you.
It implies necessary risk and intense activity, not the passivity you usually associate with financial independence.
Precisely. And this runway, it's inherently unstable. It's actively decaying because of two inevitable structural forces. First, the scheduled exhaustion of the tax-free cost basis, which is the foundational mechanism we're about to exploit.
Okay.
And second, the relentless high-velocity erosion of purchasing power from real inflation, which, as we'll show, always hits high-service, high-rent urban centers way harder than the official CPI figures suggest.
So the objective is crystal clear. Buy a decade of autonomy to intensely focus on building high-leverage assets, in this scenario, specifically AI creation and intellectual property, before that financial floor just collapses entirely.
It's a very specific time-limited mission. It has an expiration date of about 10 years.
To really appreciate the structural leverage we are applying, we have to benchmark the concept of rest first. What is the gold standard for passive, low-risk, multi-decade retirement planning?
That would be the 4% rule. It is the foundational concept for any serious discussion on long-term financial independence.
It was originated by William Bengen back in 1994, based on backtesting market data, and then popularized by the Trinity study in 1998.
And it defines the safe withdrawal rate, or SWR. The mechanics are simple. You withdraw 4% of your initial portfolio value in the first year, and then you adjust that dollar amount upwards each year for inflation. And that's supposed to make the portfolio last 30 years or more.
And the reason this rule is the gold standard is its conservative success rate.
Yes, it assumes a moderately balanced portfolio, typically 50% equities, 50% intermediate-term government bonds, and historical backtesting shows a robust 95% probability of not running out of money over a 30-year horizon.
Even with severe market crashes.
Even with severe crashes. That is true safety and security.
Okay, now for the cold water reality check. If we apply the 4% rule to our $1 million, we get a gross annual income of $40,000.
And that is where the traditional FIRE strategy hits an immovable wall in a Tier 1 location. In San Francisco or Manhattan, an individual income of 40 grand is perilously close to the official poverty threshold.
It's just not enough.
It is mathematically insufficient to rent even the smallest micro-studio apartment without being, severely rent-burdened, let alone fund the tech you need for a creative lifestyle.
So this is where the risk premium calculation becomes essential. The STRC model we're about to detail, it simulates a comfortable, high-leverage lifestyle requiring about $100,000 in annual cash flow.
And under the safe 4% rule, The passive, non-decaying safety net that required $100,000 income demands a minimum capital base of $2.5 million.
But our investor only has 1 million.
Exactly. So the difference between the investor's actual capital and the capital required for safe retirement, that is the risk premium the investor is structurally leveraging. By targeting a 10.5% yield through this STRC strategy, the investor is using risk, complexity, and structural arbitrage as their leverage.
They're transforming what should be a passive retirement plan into a really high-stakes, time-limited financial production project.
They are trading safety for opportunity.
So let's talk about that first pillar, capital structure arbitrage. The challenge is just audacious. How do you generate over $100,000 in annual cash flow from $1 million without immediately paying a heavy tax burden on it?
Well, the foundation requires converting that $1 million principal into a predictable, high-frequency stream of liquidity that is legally dissociated from immediate taxable income.
And the vehicle for that is the variable rate series, a perpetual stretch preferred stock, ticker STRC.
It's a highly specialized instrument issued by a highly specialized company, Strategy, Inc.
Let's define the issuer. Strategy, Inc. is fascinating because it fundamentally transformed its corporate identity under the guidance of Michael Saylor.
Yes. Historically, Strategy, Inc. was a business intelligence software firm, but it underwent this radical shift, transforming into the world's first and currently largest Bitcoin Treasury Company.
So its strategy isn't about software sales anymore.
Not primarily. It's to continuously use aggressive equity and debt financing to relentlessly accumulate Bitcoin. Our sources say, as of late 2025, they hold something north of 640,000 BTC. They've effectively transformed their balance sheet into a massive, highly leveraged, publicly traded digital asset index.
And this corporate metamorphosis is the key to the whole strategy because it creates what you call the accounting fulcrum. Strategy Inc.'s business model centered on accumulating this volatile digital asset combined with specific corporate accounting rules that results in the company reporting negative tax earnings and profits, or E&P.
Right.
Tell us exactly how that negative E&P is created, because that seems to be the necessary condition for the tax arbitrage.
This is the critical technical detail that people often overlook. So Strategy Inc. is constantly acquiring Bitcoin and holding it as an intangible asset. Under current GAAP accounting standards, when the market price of Bitcoin falls below the cost basis at which the company acquired it, which happens all the time given the volatility, the company has to record a non-cash write-down. It's called an impairment charge.
So it's a loss on paper, even if they haven't sold any Bitcoin.
Precisely. These impairment charges are massive non-cash expenditures that severely depress the company's taxable E&P calculation. Now, E&P is similar to retained earnings, but it's calculated specifically for tax purposes, separate from general GAAP earnings.
Okay.
And because Strategy Inc. has accumulated hundreds of millions, sometimes billions of dollars in these impairment charges over the years, they've built up a massive deficit and negative E&P buffer. And that means for tax purposes, the company literally has no accumulated profits from which to pay a taxable dividend. This negative E&P buffer is the structural source of the arbitrage.
That's fascinating. Okay, now let's look at the preferred security itself, the STRC.
The STRC preferred stock is designed to isolate cash flow and strip away some of the extreme volatility of the underlying Bitcoin, while still offering a high yield that matches the risk. Its target yield, as defined by its issuance terms, was set at 10.5%.
Which generates the necessary $105,000 a year from the $1 million investment. So let's elaborate on the stretch provision. This is a mechanism that makes this preferred stock unique because it acts as an automated price stabilizer. Why is that so rare in the fixed income world?
Well, most preferred stock is fixed rate, meaning the dividend payout never changes. This makes the price extremely sensitive to interest rate fluctuations. But the STRC's variable rate dividend, the stretch, is governed by a preset formula tied to the stock's trading price near its $100 par value.
So if the stock price drops...
If the stock drops below $95, the dividend rate automatically increases by 25 to 50 basis points, a quarter to a half of a percent, until the price stabilizes.
And who mandates that adjustment? Is it the board?
No, that's the genius of it. The adjustment is automated. It's triggered by the market price itself, providing instant confidence to potential buyers that if the price falls, the yield will immediately become more attractive, drawing in new capital.
And what if it goes up?
Conversely, if the price rises above $101, the rate adjusts downward to cool demand and keep the price near par. This ensures the investor can liquidate the position close to $100 if they need to, providing better capital preservation than a typical common stock.
And crucially, the distributions are paid monthly, 87.57. That frequency is a major advantage for someone on a strict budget. It mimics a salary, so you don't need to hold these large, non-yielding cash buffers.
Now, we have to clarify the structural protections and the risks. While Strategy Inc.'s marketing focuses on their Bitcoin treasury, the STRC preferred stock is not directly collateralized by those Bitcoin holdings.
Okay, so what structural protections prevent management from just stopping the dividend if Bitcoin dips?
Well, STRC ranks senior to the common stock, MSTR, but it's junior to the company's convertible debt. The real financial handcuff is the dividend stopper provision. This is a covenant that states, if Strategy Inc. fails to pay the STRC preferred dividend, it is legally prohibited from declaring dividends on or repurchasing any junior securities.
Most notably, the common stock.
Most notably, the common stock. And since Strategy Inc.'s entire aggressive growth model relies on continuous, accretive issuance selling common stock or converting debt to buy more Bitcoin blocking, those capital return mechanisms would signal catastrophe to the common stock market. It would effectively stop their core business strategy.
So management's incentive to keep that Bitcoin growth strategy going ensures the STRC dividend gets paid unless the company's in, like, absolute financial extremists.
Exactly. But the 10.5% yield is still a very real risk premium. The security is inextricably linked to Strategy Inc.'s solvency, which is in turn linked to the highly volatile price of Bitcoin.
Now for the real magic of Pillar 1, the tax arbitrage through return of capital, or ROC.
This is the linchpin. Because Strategy Inc. reports no accumulated tax E&P due to those massive Bitcoin impairment charges, the IRS cannot legally classify the $105,000 distributions as taxable dividends.
They can't.
So instead, under IRS Section 301(c)(2), the distribution is classified as a return of capital.
Which renders the six-figure cash flow truly tax invisible in the immediate term.
Absolutely. In the year you receive it, the $105,000 cash flow is non-taxable, and critically, it does not appear on the income lines of your Form 1040 that are used to calculate adjusted gross income, or AGI. It's treated simply as you, the investor, getting your own principal back piece by piece.
So the distribution just reduces the adjusted cost basis of the stock?
It does.
So taxation isn't eliminated, it is merely deferred. Deferred until the stock is sold or until the cost basis hits zero.
That's the crucial distinction. And at a 10.5% yield, the investor has approximately 9.5 years before that basis is fully exhausted. This is a decade of six-figure cash flow that is legally invisible to the tax authority as income. This deferred taxation mechanism is the engine that drives the next structural arbitrage.
Okay, so now we move to Pillar 2, regulatory arbitrage. That $0 AGI from the ROC is the master key to unlocking the second major subsidy, especially somewhere like California. It's highly ironic, isn't it? We're using a sophisticated, high-risk, Bitcoin-leveraged corporate security to generate income, and then using the very high-tax state of California's implementation of the Affordable Care Act to generate a massive social safety net subsidy.
The irony is inescapable, but the legal structure is solid. Eligibility for key state benefits, specifically ACA subsidies via Covered California and the expanded Medicaid program known as Medi-Cal, is determined almost entirely by one metric, modified adjusted gross income, or MAGI.
And AGI is where most early retirees trip up, even those trying to use tax-advantaged accounts.
Exactly. AGI is your AGI plus specific add-back items like untaxed foreign income, tax-exempt interest, and this is a big one, interest from municipal bonds, and certain non-taxable Social Security benefits. Most tax optimization strategies still result in some AGI exposure.
But the return of capital distributions, they avoid this MGI trap entirely.
They do. ROC distributions are not included in the list of MAGI add-backs, because legally they're a repayment of principal, not interest or dividend income. So our investor, receiving $105,000 in cash flow, has a MAGI of precisely zero, assuming they have no other income sources, of course, like bank interest.
I feel like I have to stop here and acknowledge the elephant in the room. This strategy, while technically legal, is enabling a wealthy individual, someone with $1 million in assets, to access a social safety net program, Medi-Cal, that is explicitly designed for the genuinely impoverished. We have to address the ethical gray area here.
That's a necessary point of reflection. The sources describe this as an aggressive interpretation of existing tax and regulatory structures. It relies on the absolute letter of the law, that the IRS definition of ROC determines California's MGI calculation for healthcare eligibility. The legal system, in this specific instance, treats the investor as income poor, regardless of their asset wealth.
But historically, even if they had low income, Medicaid or Medi-Cal would have disqualified them through strict asset tests. I know there is a significant change in California regarding this.
This is the breakthrough that truly makes the strategy feasible in 2025. California, leveraging the flexibility provided by the ACA expansion rules, eliminated asset tests entirely for the AGI medical population, specifically adults aged 19 to 64. That change became effective in January 2024.
So here's the stunning consequence. An individual can now legally hold $1 million in a liquid security like STRC, receive $105,000 in cash flow, and still legally qualify as low income for insurance purposes because they have zero taxable AGI.
The assets are protected, and the cash flow is invisible.
Let's quantify the sheer financial value of this subsidy.
With zero MGI, the investor falls well below the 138% federal poverty level threshold, which guarantees eligibility for full medical coverage.
What exactly does that mean for their annual budget in a high-cost area?
It means they pay $0 in monthly premiums, zero deductibles, and they receive comprehensive coverage, which often includes critical benefits like dental and vision that are usually excluded from standard private ACA exchange plans.
So this eliminates a line item that typically costs a healthy early retiree somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000 a year on the open market.
Especially in California, yes. It's a direct, legally facilitated wealth transfer, a $15,000 to $25,000 annual bonus, enabled purely by the specific legal definition of return of capital versus taxable income. It effectively subsidizes the highest cost item for early retirees outside of housing.
And we should note, California conforms to the federal tax definitions on ROC, which ensures that the state income tax liability is also zero.
Which just maximizes the fiscal benefit ratio. It allows the investor to live in a notoriously high tax state while contributing nothing in direct income taxes because their income is just principal repayment.
Okay, so we've engineered the income stream via STRC. We've secured the high-cost healthcare subsidy via ImagiI invisibility. Now we have to turn to the ultimate structural barrier, physically surviving the ridiculously high costs of living in San Francisco or Manhattan while still leveraging their density for intellectual access. This is Pillar 3, spatial arbitrage.
And this is where ultralight urbanism becomes the required lifestyle. It's a design philosophy pioneered by developers like Panoramic Interests, focusing on luxury microunits. We are talking about highly engineered living spaces from, 220 to 350 square feet.
Designed to maximize utility per cubic volume, not per square footage.
Exactly.
So tell us about the location selection. Why San Francisco specifically, and why these units?
Location is everything.
Yeah.
If you take the Panoramic in the Soma district as an example, it's literally next to the corporate headquarters of major AI and tech firms like X, Uber, various VCs. The resident is placing themselves directly in the physical, intellectual, and social center of the global AI ecosystem. That proximity is the entire point.
But how do you reconcile intense, high-focus work 60 hours a week of AI creation with living in 300 square feet? That sounds psychologically exhausting.
That is the core psychological trade-off.
Yeah.
It's the essence of the spatial arbitrage. You have to fundamentally outsource your living room and your office. The small unit size is offset by massive, high-quality common areas. The building is designed with shared spaces, professional co-working lounges, communal kitchens, high-speed fiber rooftop gardens.
So the resident uses their unit as a high-focus cockpit for sleeping and specific private tasks.
Right, and all socializing, dining, and casual work are offloaded to the building's shared spaces or the city infrastructure itself. You're buying access and networking capacity, not internal space.
And the unit is just a highly efficient machine.
Mm-hmm. And these luxury micro-developments, like 188 Octadia in Hayes Valley, which is a more upscale option, are often LEED Platinum certified, so low utility costs. And they feature heavy soundproofing, which is absolutely critical for the deep, uninterrupted focus you need for sophisticated AI model training and development.
Let's analyze the cost. Market rents for these units in 2025 are hovering around, what, $2,450 to $2,900 a month?
That, yes.
So if we budget $2,850 a month, that is 32% of their $8,750 monthly cash flow. That is way higher than the traditional 25% personal finance guideline for housing. Why does this work in this specific model?
It works only because the structural savings from the other two arbitrage pillars effectively subsidize the higher rent. First, zero transport costs. These units are purposefully located in highly walkable areas, often marketed as car-free housing. That eliminates the need for a vehicle, insurance, parking, gas, easily $10,000 or more a year in a major U.S. city.
Okay.
Second, zero healthcare costs. That $15,000 to $25,000 saved annually from the medical regulatory arbitrage is the financial buffer that justifies the higher rent expense.
So they are trading a car and health insurance premiums for high-end rent.
Precisely. And they gain the intangible, priceless asset our sources call network alpha. This is the intellectual return on investment derived from proximity. You're within walking distance of AI meetups, venture capital demo days, informal hacker houses, just the sheer density of creative intellectual encounters that drive the third-place economy of San Francisco.
You can't put a dollar value on that serendipitous access.
No, but it's the primary reason the investor chose this location over, say, Omaha. The 300-square-foot apartment isn't a limitation. It's an efficient deployment of capital that aligns perfectly with the persona of a creator who prioritizes intellectual access over large material possessions. It's an exercise in extreme minimalism applied to a high-octane career.
We have established the financial stability of the 10-year runway. Now we address the purpose of that time, production capital. The independence attained is not freedom from work, it's autonomy to produce. The $1 million buys time to participate intensely in the AI revolution without the immediate suffocating pressure of monetization.
Right. And if the investor is the AI creator persona, their primary variable cost isn't rent or food, it's compute access. Whether you're training specialized models, running sophisticated LLMs like Llama 370B, or generating high-fidelity media, GPU compute power is the essential fuel.
So the strategy has to integrate a flexible mix of cloud rental OpEx and a powerful local workstation CapEx.
The cloud rental allows for burst capability, necessary for interacting with cutting-edge industrial-grade hardware like the NVIDIA H100 GPUs, which are the 2025 standard.
Let's look at the OpEx costs. The cloud rental market is intensely competitive.
It is. On-demand H100 instances from specialized providers like Lambda Labs run about $3 an hour. However, the investor, being highly technical, can leverage decentralized or spot markets like RunPod or Vast.ai, which can drive the H100 hourly cost down to the $2 to $270 range.
Or even cheaper for consumer cards.
Oh, way cheaper, down to 30 to 50 cents an hour for clusters of high-end consumer cards like the RTX 4090s.
So if the budget allocates $1,000 a month to cloud compute, that buys roughly 350 hours of H100 time. That is absolutely sufficient for training sophisticated lore models, running persistent inference agents, or testing large-scale data pipelines for weeks at a time. This is industrial-grade compute power accessible to a single individual.
But for daily inference, coding, and rapid drafting, a local workstation is just more efficient. It avoids data transfer latency. This requires a CapEx investment. A top-tier rig with dual NVIDIA RTX 4090s costs around $6,000. Amortized over the 10-year window, that's only about $166 a month.
And here is a wonderful micro-arbitrage embedded in that local CapEx, which is perfect for this strategy. Since San Francisco electricity is expensive, the 1,000-watt GPU rig, which generates significant heat, effectively functions as a powerful space heater in that tightly controlled 300 square-foot microunit.
It's a nice little bonus. It potentially offsets some of those expensive electricity costs during the city's cool evenings, another small optimization.
It's resource maximization at every level.
The creator's primary structural advantage is the zero burn rate for their lifestyle. They are not beholden to a job, external funding, or a rigid venture capital timeline. Unlike a VC-backed startup facing a brutal 18-month deadline or a hobbyist limited to weekend work, this investor has 60-plus hours of dedicated deep work time per week, coupled with industrial-grade compute power.
And this is the source of the asymmetric upside. The cost of failure is functionally zero because their lifestyle is fully funded and secure for a decade. The upside, however, is uncapped. They can pursue developing scalable SaaS tools, releasing popular open source models, or launching subscription technical newsletters that leverage their unique insights.
Okay, now we synthesize the plan, bringing the three structural pillars together into a pro forma annual cash flow statement for the year 2025. Let's confirm the feasibility of this $100,000 lifestyle.
We start with the inflow, a static $105,000 annually from the STRC preferred stock. And critically, the net taxable income on this entire stream is zero, thanks to that ROC classification.
Right. Now for the outflow breakdown, which shows this is a focused but comfortable existence. Housing in the high-efficiency microunit is $2,850 a month, so $34,200 annually.
Food and consumables, using a high SF cost of living index, which includes dining out for networking, are budgeted at $18,000.
Healthcare costs are zero, fully subsidized by the medical regulatory arbitrage. AI compute and specialized SaaS tools utilize that crucial $1,000 per month, totaling $12,000 annually.
Transport, because it is a car-free existence in a dense urban core, is budgeted minimally at $3,600 for rideshares and public transport. And finally, discretionary and fun spending, including travel, higher-end dining, and non-essential tech, is budgeted generously at $24,000 or $2,000 a month.
Total expenses come in at $91,800. This leaves a net free cash flow, a surplus of plus $13,200. This surplus is the emergency fund and the reinvestment buffer. The strategy not only works, but affords a high-tech, cosmopolitan existence with a significant margin of safety.
But the strategy is built on complexity and high risk. We have to stress test this model against the existential threat, the crypto winter scenario.
Right. If Bitcoin crashes dramatically, Strategy Inc.'s balance sheet equity declines, and the common stock price plummets. STRC could trade down, perhaps into the high 70s or low 80s.
But the stretch provision is designed for this.
It is. It would automatically increase the dividend rate, potentially up to a capped 15% or 18%, to attract capital and stabilize the preferred stock price. The investor's primary risk is not a temporary price drop, but the complete suspension of the dividend.
And if the dividend halts, the entire income stream collapses.
Exactly. This is why that $13,200 annual surplus is absolutely essential. It has to be maintained as a high liquidity, separate reserve, acting as a mandatory 6 to 12-month emergency fund to insulate the investor from short-term liquidity shocks while they pivot the investment or seek alternative temporary employment.
Now we have to address the two structural, unavoidable ticking clocks that define the mission's deadline. The first is the tax cliff.
The countdown is fixed by the 10.5% yield. The cost basis reduces annually by the ROC distributions, reaching zero in approximately 9.5 years. This time horizon is the bridge, the duration of the arbitrage.
So what is the mechanical result of the basis hitting zero?
But the conversion happens. According to IRS Section 301c3, all subsequent distributions, that $105,000 annual payment, are no longer considered return of capital. They are legally reclassified as long-term capital gains.
Which triggers the immediate double whammy of lost subsidies and new taxation.
Because capital gains are included in the MGI calculation.
Correct.
Overnight, in year 10, the investor's MGI spikes from $0 to $105,000. Medical eligibility, with its threshold around 20,000 FPL, is instantly lost. Simultaneously, the investor accrues a massive new tax bill.
Let's break down that tax bill for our audience.
We estimate a new annual liability of about $25,500. This is based on the assumption that a successful creator would be in the 15% federal capital gains bracket, plus the estimated 9.3% California state income tax on the gain totaling nearly 24.3% in new liability on a $105,000 income stream.
So your disposable income is instantly cut by 30% to 40%.
It is. The investor is forcibly ejected from the free healthcare system and faces drastically reduced subsidy support on the ACA exchange.
The second major threat is the inflationary decay. The nominally static $105,000 income stream is dying in real terms, irrespective of the tax cliff.
And why are we assuming 10% real inflation when official CPI has been running lower?
Because the composition of the cost basket for this specific lifestyle is skewed toward high-demand, non-tradable services. Housing, dense urban services, food in expensive neighborhoods, and cutting-edge specialized tech compute. The costs for these core components in Tier 1 cities accelerate far faster than the broad CPI average.
Our sources indicate 10% annual inflation for this specific budget is a prudent, even conservative, stress test measure.
So let's detail the erosion under that 10% rate.
The decay is aggressive. At 10% real inflation, the purchasing power of that $105,000 just decays quickly. By year 5, it's only worth about $65,000 in real purchasing power. By year 10, when the tax cliff hits, it's worth a mere $40,500.
This means that by year 10, the fixed income is insufficient to cover even the microstudio apartment and basic living expenses. The investor is functionally priced out of their own lifestyle even before the tax bill arrives.
This is the central strategic imperative. The 10-year period is a closing door and a race. The investor must generate breakthrough, scalable income through their AI endeavors that not only replaces a $105,000 fixed stipend, but exceeds this decay rate dramatically.
And this leads us to the final, most sophisticated risk management problem. How do you manage the inherent volatility of the underlying Bitcoin treasury, which backs the STRC, without jeopardizing the entire MGI subsidy?
This is the complex derivative problem we promised to explore. The investor might prudently want to hedge the BTC downside risk embedded in Strategy Inc.'s solvency. The obvious solution would be to buy put options or use futures contracts on Bitcoin or the MSTR common stock.
But that derivative strategy is immediately problematic for the arbitrage.
It is. If the investor enters a derivative contract and takes a gain to hedge the risk, that profit is legally realized income, which immediately spikes their MBI. If they realize even $20,000 in gains from hedging, they lose their medical eligibility, triggering the entire regulatory arbitrage to collapse prematurely.
So they are trapped. They cannot hedge their risk safely because the profit realized from the hedge undermines the entire subsidy structure.
They are forced to hold the underlying exposure unhedged, relying solely on the structural protection of the dividend stopper and the auto-adjusting nature of the stretch provision. The only way around this would be to use highly complex, bespoke derivative products like total return swaps or certain types of structured notes that defer the realization of the gain beyond the 10-year window.
Or contracts structured as physically settled commodities to manipulate the tax realization date.
Right, but the complexity and cost of such instruments are usually well beyond the scope of a $1 million retail investor.
Okay, so we've established that this high leverage model relies, paradoxically, on the failure to generate taxable income in the short term to maintain those critical subsidies. Let's explore the success paradox.
What if the creator launches a phenomenally successful AI sauce tool, and in year 3, it starts earning a sustainable $60,000 a year?
The structural hammer drops immediately. Their MGI instantly becomes $60,000. Medical eligibility is lost, and they owe taxes on that new income. The arbitrage strategy ends early.
And this is defined as the intended good problem. The loss of the $15,000 to $25,000 healthcare subsidy is entirely offset by the new, scalable $60,000 income stream. The arbitrage mechanism successfully served its purpose. It acted as a risk-free incubator, supporting the creator during the critical zero-revenue, high-risk development phase.
So the necessity of the arbitrage just naturally dissolves once the creator becomes financially self-sustaining and generates an income stream that far exceeds the poverty limits.
Exactly. The goal is not to preserve the arbitrage for 10 years, but to outrun it, to make so much money that the subsidies become irrelevant.
So, to synthesize the entire effort, $1 million in 2025 is not a safe nest egg for permanent rest under the 4% rule. It is a wasting asset seed capital for a decade of autonomous struggle, placed at the highest leverage point possible.
If the goal is permanent safety, you need $2.5 million. If the goal is a fighting chance to change the world with AI from the epicenter of technological development, this complex triple arbitrage strategy is the necessary ticket. It's a calculated trade-off of financial security for concentrated opportunity.
We've covered the intricate structure of financial, regulatory, and spatial arbitrage, detailing how the STRC mechanism generates tax-deferred income and how California's MGI rules create a massive healthcare subsidy. We've also detailed the two great existential threats: the tax cliff and inflationary decay.
However, the ultimate variable underpinning the STRC's negative EMP buffer and its price stability is the market price of Bitcoin itself.
That structural risk cannot be eliminated easily.
So for those looking to manage this specific market risk over the 10-year window, the question is not if you should hedge the underlying BTC exposure that's financially prudent, but how you can do so without generating a taxable derivative sale that spikes your MBGI and triggers the tax cliff prematurely.
This is the complex derivative problem that remains, a fundamental tension between risk management and tax optimization.
This specific financial engineering quest finding a non-taxable hedge is something for you to explore. Keep that quest on.
And as we close out, remember that the content we create on this deep dive is fully open source. We use your shared sources spread all over the web to learn and frame the original content for this deep dive. And we invite you, the listeners, to share more sources in the comments if you feel our analysis, especially on the intricacies of the MGI add-backs or the STRC mechanics, is even a teeny tiny bit off base.
The goal, as always, is to strive for a perfect symbiosis of artificial and natural intelligence.
And we are always actively looking for human collaborators, especially experts in corporate tax law and preferred stock structures, to review and critique our content before we publish. If you want to help us refine these technical deep dives, please drop a comment or reach out.
We rely on this community review.
As always, keep searching, keep the quest on.